Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and score them on how well the store page sells it. Since I have no formal journalistic credentials, I feel like I am uniquely qualified to pass judgment on the hard work and dedication of other people. Today, we are looking at our last game for the month of sales in celebration of December and the winter holidays, and we are looking at Winter Burrow. So, sticking with the winter and the sales, but deviating from what we did last week with the whole Santa is potentially a bloody situation and going into more of a cozy aesthetic here, or at least it on the surface it looks cozy, but there is an element of survival and some tension to managing your resources for the sake of that survival. At least that's what we're given here. We're going to jump right in to part 1 with the description page in the store here. What we have here, they do show us a little bit of materials. The About the Game section is incredibly short for this game. Winterborough is a cozy woodland survival game. Explore, gather resources, craft tools, knit warm sweaters, bake pies, and meet the locals. In Winterborough, you play a mouse who returns from the big city to find their childhood home in ruins. To make matters worse, your aunt, who is supposed to be looking after it, has gone missing. Restore your broken down childhood burrow to its former glory so you can relax in front of the fireplace. You brave the elements and journey out into the frozen wilderness to collect vital resources for both yourself and your new home. Beware the insect wildlife and remember that nobody survives on their own. Find new friends, expand your survival handbook, and solve the mystery of what happened to your aunt. Winterborough is a survival game. You play at your own pace, you customize your character, decorate your burrow, and choose a path that fits your playstyle. The story is yours to tell. And with the graphics that they have here, they do show little snippets of the gameplay. We see hints of the menu and crafting here. The fact that one of the crafting methods is specifically knitting is, I feel, pretty unique to this genre of game. That you have, like, we see the crafting bench, we see the stove for cooking, and then knitting for clothes and fibers, like fibrous items like ropes and stuff, is just as important to surviving in this game, surviving and progressing. The wilderness is shown. We do see some of the fights with the insects out there where you do use your tools as weapons against them, and there are insects of various sizes. That is something that's kind of interesting that we'll see in screenshots and the trailer, where animal sizes are taken into account. Not everything is the same size. You are a tiny, itty bitty little mouse, but there's a lot of animals that are larger than you, both friendly and predatory. So now we're going to go ahead and dive right into part 2 and look at the screenshots before we get to the trailers. And the trailers really do show a wealth of information. We do see here, they show just a little simple section of wilderness where you're going to be spending a lot of time collecting your resources. Turns out this is probably an early quest to get pebbles and twigs. Those do sound like very basic, fundamental, early crafting items for these types of things. We do see multiple bars here that, based on the icons and their coloration, it looks like health, so your hit points, food, warmth, and what I'm pretty sure is your stamina meter shown by a pair of lungs, as if to say, like, if you spend too much time sprinting or exerting yourself, you're going to get winded and you're going to be too tired to do things. So those are some interesting dynamics for showing those meters, that you have to manage all of those. Considering it is a mouse out in winter, the warmth one especially feels like an important mechanic. We do see our hot bar here with the foods, drink, and axe and shovel, and there's probably more tools than that. And we will see on this one and in other screenshots, uh, the little on-screen displays showing you what buttons to push are going to change for controller inputs, like we see here with the menu button and the right button on the D-pad, and then left bumper, right bumper are going to, cycle your way through here with the controller. We also see in other screenshots that they're going to show keyboard buttons depending on your control scheme. We do get a hint of the knitting menu here, where we see a few things, and the one highlighted here is wool yarn, where you find You use required items, looks like an animal fur, in order to knit into woolen yarn to possibly make clothes with, especially warm clothes to keep you out in the wilderness longer so that you can survive without freezing to death because that is something that we see happen a couple of times in the trailers. And we even have a craft and a craft all button, which is a nice little addition. I have seen some games where you go to craft something and you can craft one at a time. Maybe you'll be able to like toggle how many you want to craft. But even then, I feel like it was Fields of Mystria, where one of my main complaints with it was that you would have to click the right arrow for quantity of an item that you craft or cook or hold it down and let it like go, but it you weren't able to just input a number. Like you had to wait for it to push. You had to hold down the arrow button for it to get that far to get if you wanted to craft a lot of something. So if you were crafting like 100 units of something, it would take you a minute to just wait for it to get to that point. Here you can just click craft all, and every bit of the resource in your inventory will go ahead and process for that. So I do like that we have the craft all button here for that. We do have another objective here where you actually have yourself out on a frozen or little bit of a frozen puddle. Finding Willow's notebook. That's going to be another one of the quests here. We do see a little bit more going on here. Like we see arrows on the warmth meter. I'm guessing that that probably means you're suffering a faster debuff of losing warmth. Either that or it's supposed to be like a barrier that shows like, okay, above this point or below this point, maybe you'll have slower degeneration or improved degeneration depending on the mechanics. It's hard to guess just from the screenshots, but I do really like that the game is showing these menus because when a game has this much crafting to its aspect, we do see the cooking menu here to make beech nut biscuit. It even tells us up front how much warmth, how much hunger, and it looks like an hour long buff, probably 1 hour of in-game time, not necessarily an hour of actual gameplay, but an hour of a warmth buff that looks like either increases your max warmth by 10% or maybe slows your debuff by 10% or slows your degeneration by 10%. I imagine it's one of those things just basing on what I'm looking here. Basically, they are showing us a lot of little things on here that I feel like convey a lot of information for us before we even play the game so that we can get an idea and have that guesswork to know, especially for those of us who have played similar games, where we might fall on that. Like on this one, we even have the arrows are lower on the warmth meter, but so is the warmth meter itself. We have the main quest being bring your old Burrow back to life. I imagine that is the main quest, but we also see the field of vision that you have is starting to get frosted over. Of course, with that low warmth stat, that makes sense. If your warmth goes too low, you're going to be freezing out there because it's a winter situation. Another situation, chase that owl, find Auntie. I imagine that's another part of the main quest, along with this uh blacksmithing or stonesmithing toad character. That's an interesting motif there. So it looks like the toad is going to be very important to getting your things. And like I mentioned earlier, having keyboard keys showing instead of controller inputs for these. C for your inventory, tab for your quest log, what I presume is your quest log or journal. We even see our little cycle of the time here, and then Z and X to move along your hotbar. A lot of nice things with that. We do see nighttime situations where it's probably going to be a little more dangerous and a bit colder out there. Although it does look like when you're in combat, your meters and your overhead or your user interface seems to be pulled off the screen. I do notice that in a couple of the screenshots and stuff. I don't know if that's just a setting or if that's just how they have that or if it is an actual core mechanic. More for finding Willow's notebook. It looks like from this, it looks like using your axe can actually hit multiple targets if you're like, within a good range, like with these mushrooms here. We do see up arrows on the lungs. So I imagine that's probably improved stamina. This situation is looking really dicey. You've got red all over the screen. The screen is incredibly frosted, and you have these gigantic spiders right on top of your back. So you're going to have some potentially deadly situations that you have to worry about. They show us this all in the screenshots before we've even gotten to look at the trailers. And there are a total of five. No, yeah, it's five trailers to check out. Each one shows mostly the same ideas with a little bit of narration going along to it, but they really get the point across. And I think all five of the trailers, they were probably initially released at different points in development and all that. One of them is even a creator commentary, like just a little 2 minute snippet of creator commentary. It's real nice. We do see a lot of visual obscurity going on here, likely with a snow flurry or some haze. So weather is probably going to play a major factor in how well you can see your surroundings and navigate around the world. I imagine that's going to be a major factor in here. So it is sold and boasted as a cozy game, but at the same time it looks like they do put pressure on actually getting into that advancement and everything, where you're putting yourself in, you have to prepare for dangerous situations even though you're mostly working on a cozy scale. We've got new discovery, so making furniture for your burrow, because the main focus of the game does seem to be revitalizing your old home burrow so that it becomes a nice comfortable living situation for you. We do see the Burrow storage with a nice meter here. I don't know how much space is in the storage, but then we see the inventory as well. They're showing a lot of the menu information in this game, where the menu is giving us, it looks like 20 inventory slots plus 5 slots on your hotbar that you can access on the fly, separate from that 20 inventory. So basically, this is your backpack that you're carrying with you, while your hotbar is your hands and pockets that are immediately accessible. We even see blackberries get extra little, half-hour buff to your stamina and a little bit of hunger, so you're not getting a lot out of it. Just these tiny little bits of information that I think are incredibly meaningful for the people who are paying attention to them. And with this one, this is our last screenshot. Looks like the edge of a thing that's going from one zone into another. So a whole lot of nice things with that. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to part three of our review here, into the trailers. Now the trailers, like I said, they do show mostly similar things. You're not getting a lot of new information from one trailer to the next. They're just telling you about the highlights, that you're moving back to your old home out in the wilderness from the big city, and your old home borough is basically run down, dilapidated, abandoned, and you don't know why. Your aunt seems to be missing, and we do get snippets again of the menu, showing navigation in the menu, navigation in the field, fights with the bugs, crafting your gear. We see axe, shovel, pickaxe. We have quite a bit going on there, because a part of these kinds of survival games is going to be gathering resources to craft things and improve your equipment so that you can survive longer. We even see out in the snow what looks like other animals that have maybe frozen and passed away out there. Now, this one looks like it was a release date trailer that came out before the game. There's a developer commentary trailer where I mentioned the developer gives a little note about their passion with the game, the passion for the project, which very much does seem very well done. The graphics that they display are incredible. I think, despite the simplicity, they are incredible at the conveyance that they have here. Like, you can easily tell what is what. Things don't seem to be too crowded. It looks like dying does drop your inventory. We see a bunch of the NPC characters that you're going to be befriending out there, in each one with their own personality, their own home environment, probably different side quests, goals, main quests to deal with them or to work with them as they teach you new things. I imagine some of them are probably going to be good for getting a lot of your recipes. The one stoneworking toad is probably going to be integral to upgrading your equipment. Whole lot of just little things like that. And if we can like get a little move forward in the trailer before we get too much in there, we do see that you do meet your aunt in the game. So they are showing parts of the game that seem to be from different stages of the game. And we do have a situation where, it shows on the trailer, you're getting very close to freezing, your warmth is down, but you get home just in time because, that's your main goal is to make sure you get home safe and comfortable. With that, towards the back end of the Steam page, we have the other three trailers. Again, showing bugs, showing your resource gathering, showing your home. A lot of the same things, although we do even see some here where we see extremely large creatures, but then you're at the campfire and the spider just darts off, like doesn't even bother you. That leaves me wondering, are the large bugs scared of the fire, or do different animals, different insect predators have different behaviors where some of them are fire averse? Who knows? Well, that would come through experience in playing the game, but it is kind of cool that they show that and hint at that in the trailer. And even this, oh wow, just that. Let me pause on that image. This image right here is an incredible, like, just simple artistic depiction of what you're getting into with the game. As the snow comes in, you're out there running through the wilderness. Tells us again, cozy survival game. It's it gets a little difficult. It does show us a different mouse than the one we saw in the other trailers, which tells me there's probably some kind of character creation where you can choose the color of your fur, possibly the shape of your ears. I'm wondering how much you can customize even the other characters. Like you have a larger squirrel out here, what looks like a possum, maybe some form of possum. And even your clothing menu. The clothing menu is something that I did not see in the other trailers. If we can just get a snapshot of that real quick. Survive the winter, but don't forget, cozy up by the fire. Where did that I know it was in there. There it is. So right here we have the clothing menu. This is one that we didn't see in the other ones alongside the inventory, the hot bar, and the knitting and cooking menus. We do have the inventory with what looks like hat, sweater, claws. I did see something in the crafting that was about snowshoes. You use leaves to make snowshoes so that you can move faster on soft snow. Your backpack, I imagine maybe there's backpack upgrades where you get more inventory space. Pants, cloak, and tail. That is a lot of inventory slots for what you might expect in this game. Like I think in Stardew Valley, you get shirt and pants, which are only cosmetic, hat, which is only cosmetic, your and then your boots and two ring slots are the ones that actually give you buffs, and then you unlock a trinket slot later. But here we see that the clothes are needed for warmth to protect yourself from the cold. So I'm pretty sure every single one of these pieces of clothing probably has something to it. Maybe there's something where you knit something for your tail, or you equip something to your tail as like an extra light source that you walk around with. I don't know if I saw it in this game, but I have read like some fantasy novels that have rat folk as a race, and sometimes they will carry a lantern by their tail as a light source, so because it keeps their hands free. Just neat little things like that. Another one, rating pending. I imagine this would easily be an E for everybody game. I don't with maybe with some like not too intense on the violence scale. It does have fighting and stuff, but it doesn't seem to have like a lot of adult situation to it. We do have more like drawn snapshots and backgrounds, which look incredible. They would make beautiful paintings for a wall or for a computer's wallpaper if you like to decorate your things. I could definitely see a community and a fandom developing around this just for the aesthetic alone. It feels a little reminiscent of like the cover art of the book or from the movie of Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim kind of situation. It kind of has that very storybook appeal to it. And with that, that's pretty much all I have to say for the trailers. Oh, here we have with the snowshoes. We see the snowshoes on the menu there. In fact, I see stars on the snowshoes? Yes, there are stars on the snowshoes. So as you maybe there's some skill trees or some skills or something. Inventory stats. So the stats, I'm sure there's something you can upgrade to maybe improve your crafting. That would be kind of cool to see if improved crafting can give you those stars, or if you add the stars to something to make them better. Woolen sweater looks like it has Oh, it even tells us right here medium cold resist and dash force -10. So it probably slows you down a little bit, but with the trade off of staying warmer. Also quite thick. Yeah, even the description kind of hints at that. A thick woolen sweater is the first thing an apprentice knitting mouse will learn to make in the Northlands, the first step to be able to explore further into the freezing world. Just incredible little bits of flavor with the dialogue and everything or the menus and everything going in here. The menus are even illustrated in this storybook fashion, which I find incredible that they do that. They have everything laid out here in very easy to read tabs, easy to navigate, and this is without even playing the game. I have criticized a few games on this show in my reviews for the lack of showcasing menus and stuff in the game, especially if the game is a role playing game or a survival game like this, where you're going to be spending a fair amount of time in your menus trying to optimize your stats, fix your gear, craft your items, those kinds of things. Like you need to know that your menus are going to be accessible and usable for you as a player. Like you want to know that going in. And with that, that's basically part three completed. Part four is our overall analysis of the game itself based on what we see. The graphics, like I said, it's a very simple but effective storybook kind of graphic system here. Everything is laid out and drawn in such clarity that I can tell where borders are here. Like I've got an idea of where I'm going to be able to travel based on the rocks, the snow, the line work for where it looks like a cliff would drop off. The character is colorful and pops off of that snow so that you can clearly see them where they're at. The character art does seem to have different sizes. It looks like you might be able to choose your size, your color, your ear shape. All of that little customization could make for some very fun looking mice, or you can be as simple and as tiny as you want to be. The sound, now the sound for the trailers, it does give us that bit of a bit of melancholy, I want to say, where the music isn't overly upbeat. It doesn't have the chiming ring of like the first morning of spring of Stardew Valley. It doesn't have like the Animal Crossing style of music. It has not the ominous vibe of other games like that you would get from spooky or horror games, but it does have a kind of melancholy and longing to it, I feel like. And considering that the main character here is one that is returning to a childhood home that they've left behind, and just to find it kind of in ruins as they try and slowly rebuild it so that they can live the cozy life they want, it does kind of evoke that sense of want and longing in that. I do like that the music has that very downplayed, relaxed motif to it, but that it's not overly chipper. And I am a person who likes cheerful vibes, but for this, it seems like a cheerful vibe, especially with how much they showcase the potential freezing to death here. The cheerful might not have been the right tone for it. And I think that they did go in an effective direction with that little bit of not depressed or scary music, but that like little bit of like I said, I think melancholy is the best descriptor I can give it. With like I said, I don't have formal journalistic credential training, so maybe my vocabulary is a little limited. If somebody out there has a better word, please let me know in the comments. The gameplay, again, I would say that it's looking pretty solid. Uh we do have survival. Now, we don't see exactly how much grinding the kind of game would have to it. We do see a little bit of the crafting, and it does appear that the crafting isn't being overly demanding on the number of materials that you have to get. But there could also be a question of how much material you get out of each individual thing. Like when you bust up a log, are you always only getting two sticks or logs or something, or are you able to get more? We don't know how much of a slow roll that is going to be, but again, that's not a deal breaker for the sake of the store page. It is nice to see that those lower numbers are in there. Although there is also the thing where you probably have to craft, like you get raw materials and then craft those along a chain of crafts in order to get your finished product. Like with the woolen sweater that it showed us, you're not going to create that from things that you find out in the wilderness. We did see in the crafting menu that you have to make woolen yarn, and in order to make that, you have to get like fur out in the wild, like animal fur. So you use the fur to make the yarn, and then you probably use the yarn to make the sweater. So those kinds of things, it is going to become a bit of a progression engine for that. But as long as the crafting numbers aren't too terribly high, that shouldn't make it overly grindy, where they go and give you just enough to where you have to do prep work for your expeditions, but that your main focus is going to be those expeditions, even for the cooking and all of that. And like I said, I do think that as far as the gameplay, the crafting and the UI and everything, the UI is immaculate and golden. It's not the most sophisticated UI, but it is portrayed in an incredibly clear and concise way where, like I said, I went through the screenshots and the trailers and described basically everything that I could figure out about the game just by looking at them. And maybe I'm wrong on some of the details. I'm not saying that anything I said is 100% accurate. It is based on what it appears to be based on my prior experience with other games and how that looks. It's and it's pretty clear if it is if what ugh, if my thought process on those was accurate, it wouldn't surprise me at all because the game does seem to really take into consideration what is commonly used in that kind of visual language that video games have used for whole decades in order to convey their information to the player. It makes it very accessible, very easy to figure out. So I feel like somebody could easily jump into this, even if it was their first game, even if they're not familiar with that visual language that games use, that they could at least figure out just based on the icons like heart, food, um, lungs, and a flame are very self-descriptive of what they're trying to go for so that you don't get your meters mixed up. Now, that's with the UI, the menus, the gameplay. I do really like, again, going back to the crafting. Um, I do like that in the home that there's multiple crafting situations. There's your stove for cooking, there's your recliner for knitting, which I think is incredibly creative that is an aspect of this game's crafting system. And then you also have your workbench to craft and upgrade your tools, which makes perfect sense. You probably also set up your furniture over there. But the fact that a good chunk of your craft work is also knitting is I shouldn't be as impressed by that as I am. It's just a dynamic in the games, even though the knitting thing is clearly only flavor of the game. Like any other game, Minecraft, Stardew Valley, Fields of Mystria, uh, basically everything that you're going to craft in one of those is just going to be done at your standard crafting bench. The fact that you have to sit in a recliner to knit things for this game. It's just that little bit of flavor adds to the cozy appeal of, using your burrow as a place of comfort because stuff like knitting, crochet, things like that, those are very comforting hobbies that people take on to make things, which I love that they added that to this game where, you are going to be doing a lot of possibly mid to high pressure adventuring and survival situations, but that the whole point of it is to come home to your cozy little abode. Now, with that, the last thing that we have to look at is the pricing for the game. And this is the part that, it can be loved or hated. Now, right now at the time of this review, the game is on sale for $15.99. So $16, that's 20% off, and it's going to be that price until January 5th, according to Steam. If it is available on other shops, feel free to look at those. Leave a comment, let us know if you found it on whatever other services you use. Um, I do think that the $16 is a fair price here. I don't know that the game would have as much meat to it as something like Stardew Valley, but then again, that may be a bit of an unfair comparison considering that the one game is almost 10 years old, and this game from Pine Creek Games, publisher Noodle Cake apparently. Adorable names, by the way. Um, Considering that Stardew's been out for almost a decade by this point, with multiple updates from the creator that weren't even like you didn't even have to buy any DLC for it. Winter Burrow is brand new, basically brand new. It came out last month. It came out just barely more than a month ago on November 12th of 2025. If you happen to be watching this years later, who knows? But that is a very recent game. $16 for that at its launch is a pretty fair price. I feel like the $20 price tag for me personally might be a little bit on the high end, but for people that absolutely love this motif, I don't think $20 is unfair. I think that the game does shows a lot with the trailer without giving away the story, but they do show you enough of the mechanics and the uniqueness of the crafting that maybe the $20 is a solid price tag. 16 is also pretty good. It's not one that I'm going to be snapping up and buying right away just because I do have other projects and other tasks lined up for myself. But this is one. In fact, you know what? We're going to go ahead and add that to my wish list right now. Now, it also has a free demo out. So, by all means, people that are interested in this, snag that demo and see if you like that demo, because the demo probably gives you just enough of an idea to be like, okay, is 16 or is $20 something that I'd be willing to pay for this? It even has a bundle where you can get the soundtrack with it for a little bit of money off. The soundtrack, again, the music did sound very pleasant. I don't know that it's something that I would jam out to, or it's not like the huge bops that I'd be smashing my head to. Um, but there's also a couple extra bundles. There is a Winter Burrow and Ritual of Raven bundle, which is another farming game out there for $21. There's a Mice and Cozy bundle that comes with Twinklebee, which looks almost like an Animal Crossing esque kind of floating village game just based on the screenshots there. So there's a couple of bundles that have this too, where you get a second game for like an extra $5 to $6, depending on which bundle you get. So you do have some good pricing options here. I think that, like I said, I think it's a fair price, and I'm going to be keeping my eyes on it if my time opens up and this looks like the kind of game where I would be like, you know what? Yes, I want to do a nice extended project with this game. I would absolutely pay even that full $20 for it. Otherwise, if it's something that you might want to keep on the back burner until it's like maybe $10, I could understand that. That's up to the individual buyer to choose. With that, I would also like to just highlight that Pine Creek Games, so the developer Pine Creek Games, this seems to be the only game that Pine Creek has made, but then their publisher Noodle Cake does have several other games under their repertoire. They got Flickshot Rogues, Sakura Blue, Slash Quest, Squiggle Drips. So this is Soundfall. They have quite a variety of games under their disposal. Oh wow. Soundfall is a dungeon crawler that is $30 full price on sale for 149. Huh. Neat. But anyway, we're not talking about those right now. We are talking about Winter Burrow. And with that, I think it's time we go ahead and give this game our final rating. So, part 6 for our rating of the game. Now, I don't think it's a flawless game, but it's very difficult for me to find any kind of negative criticisms here. I think the only negative thing I could think is that maybe I don't know just how grindy the game might be. If I was to levy any criticism on its presentation, again, it doesn't appear to be overly grindy. The quest logs do seem very simple to convey things, but at the same time, I'm not sure how extensive the gameplay is. We do know that the ant disappears. We see an owl make off with the ant in one of the trailers, so that's not even a spoiler if you're paying attention to trailers. Um, but I don't know how long of a main quest there is to it or how much of a progression is to everything. In fact, maybe that could be like not necessarily a grindy issue, but how long that extends. And of course, for even a $15 to $20 game, you kind of want it to last a little bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 40 or 80 hour epic RPG, but you would hope to get more than like 3 to 4 hours of gameplay out of it if you even if you were to try and blitz or speed run the game from zero to end on a first playthrough. Hopefully the game would last longer than that. I do sincerely hope that it has that. The menu, I am hoping that the menu and the stuff has enough sorting options. Otherwise, I know sometimes some games like these, their item menus might be a little finicky, but again, we don't see anything against that. We do see just enough to be like, okay, the inventory management does not look obtuse or painful to deal with. It looks like we do have enough to go there. So for that, I believe that this game is going to warrant a very solid 8 out of 10 on its rating. Um, Again, I don't think it is a perfect game because let's face it, no game is really perfect. But I do feel like for survival and cozy game enthusiasts, this game would offer a lot to go with. Uh, if it goes on a more substantial sale down the line, I do have it wishlisted now. You saw me wishlist it on this video. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. If it goes on a much bigger sale, I would just snap it up in a heartbeat. But even then, I would pay a higher price for it. Like I would pay the full $20 for this if I was gearing up to do a project on this game for like another series or survival series or something for this channel. Which I mean, currently, I have my Tiny Bookshop and my Stardew Valley series that are ongoing on there, and they have a good amount to go before they're all caught up. But this is the kind of game where I could see myself sitting down and absolutely getting a lot of enjoyment out of this. Even if I don't do it as a series, if I eventually just come around to wanting to play something new and fresh for leisure, or if it comes out on Nintendo Switch, I don't even know if I didn't even check to see if it's already on Switch. Steam. Oh, it is on Switch. It's right there on the screen. I do have a thing shown here. The trailer does say Game Pass, Xbox, Steam, and Switch. So if I can find it on Switch, maybe if a sale pops up there, because this is also something that I would just absolutely love to play on a handheld device. So if this is your kind of game and you have a Switch or you have a Steam Deck where you like to play on handheld machines, this is the perfect kind of game to just wrap yourself up in a blanket and sit back in a recliner on a couch or lay in bed and just kind of cozy up with your game like that while you're having a good time. Uh, that's exactly the kind of player I would recommend this to. And again, I think if it goes on a substantial sale, like if it hits $10 or less, I would snap this up in a heartbeat. Um, but for the current price, I'd be like, you know what? If I was lining up and looking for a new project and didn't already have a backlog to try and work my way through for other things I want to try, I would jump on this one as well. With that, now I would just like to make my usual reminder here. All the views that I have expressed today, they are my opinions. We all have different tastes when it comes to our entertainment media, and anybody that has differing opinions and respectful criticism to put in the comments, I welcome that. For those of you who have purchased or played this, let me know what your thoughts are. If you think that I have any kind of accurate feedback here, or if I misrepresented anything, by all means, let me know how accurate or how off base I was with this. Because again, this is a review show of the store page specifically, which can be very hit or miss. I'm hoping that if the store page is accurate to the game, then absolutely it is doing a fantastic job of portraying that.